So with that, this regular meeting of the Capital Long Range Improvements Committee will now be.
Very good. Good afternoon. My name is Jeffrey Strand. I'm the chair of the Capital Long Range Improvements Committee. Before we begin, I'd like to note that this meeting includes the remote participation of members as authorized under Minnesota statutes, section 13D.021, due to the declared local health pandemic. I will now call this meeting to order and ask the clerk to call a roll so that we may verify the presence of a quorum.
All right, so I'll begin with the roll call. Thorbjorn Adam.
Present.
Zachariah Aiden. Jocelyn Beard.
Present.
John Bernstein.
Here.
Steve Brandt.
Here.
James Brown. Luke Cunningham.
Here.
Scott Engel.
Here.
Amity Foster.
Here.
Eamon Gallagher. Kai Goodmanstead.
Here.
William Gullickson. William Graves.
Here.
Risa Husted. Katie Jones.
Here.
Matt Kazinka. Richard LaRoe.
Here.
Erica Mauder.
Here.
Dan McConnell.
Here.
Jake McCormick. Dan Miller.
Here.
George Montague.
Here. Here.
Beth Toso.
Here.
Todd Schumann.
Here.
Eric Wan.
Here.
Vice Chair Willie Bridges.
Here.
Or Jeff Strand.
Present.
With that, we do have a quorum. I'll be tallying these up separately.
Hey Robert,
Very
just to confirm if you got my name down, I was double muted. This is Zach.
Zach, I think you were didn't respond, so I think you didn't get it.
Zach, yes, thank you very much. I've added you to. We have 21 members present.
Robert.
Thank you.
Awesome, thanks.
Robert,
Yes.
this is Katrina. You have forgotten me again.
Oh, Katrina. So I'm going to make this announcement. If there's anybody I've missed, could you please let me know? It seems to be a standing issue. Katrina, thank you for chiming in.
22 members.
Too.
Thank you, clerk. Thank you. With that, we'll proceed to our agenda, copy of which was posted for public access to the city's legislative information management system, which is available at lims.minneapolismn.gov. And so we have the agenda and minutes. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda and to accept the May 26 minutes. Please state your name after the motion and after the second. And there may be one item. Okay, Willie has moved it.
Second, Eric Wan.
Willie and Eric. Discussion, Robert, you have your hand up?
Yeah, Jeff, I just wanted to note that staff had anticipated bringing a presentation to the committee today. It doesn't appear to be on the agenda, which I'll bring up on the screen here shortly. And I think that was due to the agenda being posted earlier, just a little bit ahead of schedule.
Yes, so the chair would like to note for the maker and seconder that number 9 actually need not appear because a motion to reconsider is in order by someone who is in the prevailing side and with a 2/3 vote. So that is standard, would not have to appear as number 9. And then the presentation, Robert, where would you have that go?
It may be more useful to have it earlier in the meeting.
Okay.
If not at the start of the meeting, we'd be fine just jumping in.
So that's the racial equity presentation.
That's correct.
If there's no objection with unanimous consent and the consent of the maker and seconder, we'll have that as new item number 4A. And then Human Development Task Force will be 4B. Seeing no objection, the clerk will call a roll on adoption of the agenda as revised and the approval of the May 26 CLIC meeting minutes.
All right, I'll go ahead and call the roll. Thorbjorn Adam.
Aye.
Right.
Aye.
Beard.
Aye.
Bernstein.
Aye.
Keith Brandt.
Aye.
Luke Cunningham.
Aye.
Engel.
Aye.
Amity Foster.
Aye.
Goodman said.
Aye.
William Graves.
Aye.
Katie Jones. Rich LaRoe.
Aye.
Erica Mauder.
Aye.
Dan McConnell.
Aye.
Dan Miller.
Aye.
George Montague.
Aye.
Toso.
Aye.
Todd Schumann.
Aye.
Eric Wan.
Aye.
Vice Chair Willie Bridges.
Aye.
Chair Jeff Strand.
Aye.
All right. Is there anybody that I missed during this roll call? I think I went through the names that we had present at the time we took our initial roll call.
Yes, me.
Katrina?
Should have marked you present. Thank you, Katrina. You are now fully noted. It's my fault. Is there anybody else?
Lisa, he said.
Lisa, thank you. Marked you present as well.
William Gullickson is waiting in the lobby, being admitted.
That's great. That
So I
do
can,
know 22 votes in favor.
22, so that the agenda is adopted, the minutes are approved. So then the new item 4A, staff has a presentation on the city's Strategic and Racial Equity Action Plan, SREAP, the 2017 Race and Equity Division Ordinance, and the Race Equity Impact Analysis Tool, REIA. So staff has a presentation, and that'll be coming up on your screens.
Yes, if I can just get my my machine to cooperate with me here. Maybe if I could cooperate with it better. Okay, great. Is everybody able to see the screen? I'm not getting the usual indicator
Perfectly.
that it's showing up.
Yes.
Okay, all right, great. Thank you very much. So yeah, we did want to, we wanted to use some time early in this meeting to follow up on last week's discussion, which really highlighted, among many things, how, you know, the processes that we deal with when CLIC can kind of reinforce our current investment paradigm or really open it up. So staff wanted to help CLIC to frame some thinking around racial equity in terms of work that's currently being done at the city. And that work is what we see on the screen here. It's our Strategic and Racial Equity Action Plan, or SREAP, as it's often referred to. So this is being brought to CLIC now, you know, in time for comments development, as well as for this current committee to really explore SREAP in conjunction with any other improvements that it wants to make to its own process, which, you know, it did at the end of last year's process, and which it may choose to do again this year and going forward. So just a couple comments on, you know, just where this is coming in, and I don't know, hopefully some good context for members as we think about, especially new members, as we think about CLIC as a potential continuous improvement process going forward. So on this slide, we've got a little bit more information on what the Strategic and Racial Equity Action Plan is. Again, this is a very high level overview. We have some links in this first slide that we can share out to members around these documents. But really the background is that the SREAP stems from the 2017 Race and Equity Division Ordinance, which created said Race and Equity Division and also codified definitions of equity and racial equity within the city. Equity being about fair and just opportunities and outcomes for all people. Racial equity, more specifically addressing, the reversal of racial disparity trends, elimination of institutional racism, and really ensuring that outcomes and opportunities that we see in the city in terms of our investments are not really predictable by race. So across the city, the Division of Race and Equity has really led a considerable citywide planning process that resulted in a number of different operational and policy priorities. It's aimed to ensure that department plans and budgets really, their work product are aligned with our racial equity goals, which really do include built environment, transportation, public health, arts and culture, housing elements. There are a few others. It also asks boards and commissions to, advance the city's racial equity work, and CLIC is one of those city boards and commissions. This work includes consideration of the impact that policies and practices have on all racial and ethnic groups in the city. So in addition to that, stop. Sorry about that. So in addition,
Robert, do you want to take questions after your presentation? I see that Steve Brandt has his hand raised, but
you know what? I'm comfortable either way. Jeff,
okay.
if folks want to jump in, please just go for it.
Okay, Steve Brandt.
Robert, I just looks like the PowerPoint has links to several things like the ordinance, the council definition, and the impact analysis tool. I wondered if when you're done, you could post links to those in the chat so that we can look at them more closely.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. We'll absolutely share these out. I can put them into the chat. I can also circulate them via email, so everybody's got access to these documents. A lot of them are really found under the city's Strategic and Racial Equity Action Plan website, where most of these materials have kind of been stored for folks to use. And there are some really great resources that they put out there, including a lot of the background on the Strategic and Racial Equity Action Plan, and how it's really worked its way through city processes. I'll absolutely recognize I'm not doing great justice to the amount of work that has been done on this, but we really have time for, I think, an overview and also some more consideration in the following slide of how this work kind of dovetails with what CLIC currently does. So in any case, I'll send out those links so everybody's got access to them. In addition to the links around the Strategic and Racial Equity Action Plan, there's going to be a link on the Race Equity Impact Analysis tool that was also developed to help the city to really explore racial equity outcomes when these boards and commissions, when anybody really is working within the city to create policies, practices, programs, plans, budgets, any departmental work product. So this is, we took a look at what SREAP encompasses, and we also took a look at the work that CLIC currently does to provide a, kind of a status update on what the committee is currently doing and how that might relate to different components of the Strategic and Racial Equity Action Plan. As we all know, CLIC does recommend a budget, and it provides feedback to the city in a number of ways. We individually evaluate all of these different projects, and we assign them scores based on whether they're making progress toward diverse city goals. CLIC engages in group discussion and commentary. CLIC excludes and includes projects from its funding recommendation, which is in most years, I would say, altered very little by mayor and council. One thing that's left off of here, but CLIC does engage with the public to the extent that it is able as well. I mean, we have the public information sessions. Individual members of the committee are also engaged with the community. I see a hand up and
Eric Wan has his hand up. Robert?
sure.
So Robert, to that point, are there any suggestions, guidelines, or requirements that we perform outreach and inclusion? Inclusion meaning active listening and acquiring the skills to permit other people to be part of the decision-making process.
Yeah, so Eric, thank you for that. I wouldn't be able to say if we have any specific guidelines that address exactly that. There are some requirements that are associated with boards and commissions, though, that are included in the SREAP process. And that is that the board or commission, evaluate how its policies, how its recommendations make progress toward the city's racial equity goals. And so it is CLIC is included explicitly as one of the city's boards and commissions within this overarching strategic racial and equity action planning work that's been done here within the city.
So I'm assuming that means we don't.
And I see an additional hand up from
Yeah, Amelia.
Yeah, that was a great answer, Robert. I was just gonna sort of talk a little bit more about so SREAP, the goals in SREAP, the purpose of that strategic action plan was to be really narrow and say these are some achievable goals that we have prioritized as a city and agreed on. And so the goal around ABCs is really narrowly aimed at that racial equity and impact analysis and incorporating that in whatever way makes sense for the board. The REIA, which is the Racial Equity Impact Analysis tool, which is required by anyone submitting a request for council action, departments. That tool, which is something that was developed sort of alongside this, has a lot of good questions about what kind of engagement went on, who was involved in the decision making around this process, and there's some links to other work that our Department of Community Neighborhood Relations has done to talk about what is good kind of what does really quality engagement look like. So I think there's a lot of things that are related in here. When we're talking about SREAP goals, it is fairly narrow. And the SREAP goal here is just boards are better able to apply racial equity analysis.
Eric Wan, did you have a follow-up that you were starting to ask?
Yeah, I think Amelia sort of answered it.
Okay.
For me, it was a question of are we duty bound to find out from people who don't normally join committees and boards what they're thinking, as opposed to making assumptions about what they need. And I don't think that's part of this. That's not part of SREAP. That's another process.
Right. That's a good thing, certainly, but not directly an outcome required of SREAP.
Okay, that helps. Thank you.
So I'll work through the rest of the slide here. I think I've only got the last two bullets, but essentially, as we look at what CLIC is currently doing, we do have the guidelines that are up front in front of the criteria that we use, and those guidelines do reference city goals, which in turn refer to equity and racial equity, and so that's kind of incorporated into the overall project evaluation process. CLIC also includes a specific criteria attached to equity that is new in 2021. And 25 out of 300 possible points are explicitly attached to this equity criteria. I think if I could characterize it at a high level, we see these elements throughout some of the guidelines, and we do this project by project evaluation. We do engage in discussion and comments around these projects, and that does ultimately result in programming that does get recommended, and each of these different elements, constitutes a portion of the work that the SREAP body of work has recommended be addressed via, essentially a race equity impact analysis, or a process-driven review of what it is that the committee is doing. So following up on, some very high-level summary of what the Strategic and Racial Equity Action Plan is, and what CLIC is doing now, and hopefully a lot of this really resonates with folks in terms of, what it is we're seeing the committee doing. We do want to raise the question, timely for additional work that may be done this year, or timely to ramp up for work, that may be done next year in conjunction with any other self-improvement that the committee may be interested in doing, just viewing it as a continual improvement process. The question that we're bringing today, hopefully it's the right one, is, is our current approach okay, or is additional work needed? CLIC is a largely self-governed committee within the context of its authorizing ordinance. It has applicable laws and bylaws, but again, it does engage in a self-improvement process, I think, typically, toward the end of the year. So I've thrown up a few key questions here on the document that we have in front of us today, but I think at this point, I'd like to, either turn it over for consideration now, or just kind of raise it for the committee to explore whether or not these questions are the appropriate ones, if there are additional questions that might need to be asked around what CLIC is doing with regards to the city's Strategic and Racial Equity Action Plan, and then more generally, what is working and what doesn't work with regards to how the committee explores projects and tries to make progress toward the city's racial equity goals.
Katrina has her hand up.
I would like to table it until I have the opportunity to go over all of the things that the city has to offer with the links first, and I think I can do all that in a week. So if we could bring this up again next week.
We'll take that as one suggestion. Eric? You're muted. Eric, you're muted.
A quick question here on the CLIC members. Do you happen to have the profile of our CLIC, the members of the CLIC? What does the race profile look like, and all those other questions associated with diversity?
So, Eric, that sounds like a question directed to staff. You may have to remind me what information is submitted as part of the applicant process. If it was submitted as part of the materials, we may yet have, I think, some of that information. If not, we're unlikely to actually have it handy.
And perhaps something that can be followed up on, reviewing the app, and then Steve Brandt.
I would like to move the suggestion that this be postponed or tabled a week until we've all had a chance to read up, and then we can perhaps have a more fruitful discussion.
All right. So Katrina had suggested that. Steve is wanting to make a formal motion. Is there a second? We don't really have this as a motion per se, but Katrina, are you seconding it?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So there's a motion to table the discussion on the racial equity, strategic and racial matters until the next meeting. And all in favor indicate by saying, well, let's put it this way. We can have another roll call. Maybe staff will be lenient and say, is there unanimous consent or does anyone object? John?
Hi, thanks. I'm not objecting. I'm just going to point out that I just wanted to say that this strikes me as something that would be an appropriate thing for us to review when we're done with the session. It's not like we're going to make any dramatic changes in the process at this point for within the next 4 weeks. And we got a lot to get done, and it strikes me that this would be most useful to do at the end of June once we've been all the way through the process and can assess how it went this year and what changes, if any, we want to make for the future.
Let's go to Robert.
Yeah, and so I did want to, I think, echo some of the considerations around just timing, how and when does this committee want to explore, how it's contributing to the city's overall strategic and racial equity action plan and the processes that are feeding into that. And one consideration was absolutely, when does CLIC, kind of transition away from its core work to its, continual improvement process. That was a question as we were trying to explore, when was the best time to introduce this in conjunction to any other improvements that the committee might make. But I think one key question was whether or not, any part of the comments development or the final programming might benefit from just kind of opening up this portion of the conversation a little bit more. Last week we were really touching on a lot of really some potential deep process-oriented questions, and it felt like an opportunity to bring in, something that is also designed to really investigate and understand how processes work. So I think that was part of the consideration with bringing it up now, as opposed to maybe holding off for an additional 3 or 4 meetings.
Thanks, Robert. Chair will just comment, understanding himself and from staff, this is a core part of the CLIC work. We really aren't supposed to have debate on tabling, but I'll recognize Katrina and Willie, and then we should do a roll call or see if staff will allow us to have unanimous consent. Willie and Katrina.
Yes, I think it's an important issue, and I think it's something that we have talked about in the past, the organizations, CLIC, and I think it's important if we knew, since we can't see each other, what is the makeup, the diversity of the CLIC members? Because we have had this discussion in a lot of indirect ways and direct ways, and I think it's an important discussion to have that we do represent the diversity of our city on the CLIC board. So I would not want to put this off for a long time. I'm open to having it next week, but it needs to be part of our ongoing discussion as we're making decision about who should get what and how much and everything, and that impact people today rather than next year.
Thanks, Willie. Katrina, and then we'll close with Robert.
Okay, so the first comment, the let's wait is a traditional comment that's been going on way too long. The second one is, I would hope that reading this in the next week would open up somebody's mind, even if it's just one person, but I can't see with the how reading this may change somebody's opinion about some things that they think, and that's what I would hope. And then the third comment is just based on, by doing a visual picture of what everybody looks like, that doesn't necessarily give you the makeup of the group. That's one of the traps that we kind of fall into, but you really need to have people self-identify on paper in the whole scheme of things.
Thanks, Katrina. And so Robert, as clerk, would you either call a roll or if you'll allow unanimous consent on this matter?
Yeah, I'm certainly aware we've been using unanimous consent on a couple of junctures, though, if that's something folks want to do, and if everybody's comfortable raising a hand at this point, if we don't want to do that, or if somebody doesn't want to do it this way, please do. So I see some additional hands up.
Jocelyn and Katrina.
So before I'm willing to vote on either a conversation next week or tabling the conversation, I would like the question to be restated.
The question is rescheduling the discussion part of today's presentation to the next meeting, June 9th.
Thank you.
Which allows members a week to review the materials. Amity?
Thank you. I have a question. I clicked through some of the links and like found the REIA tool. Is there a way for city staff to make sure that we can all have access to these? Because a lot of it, like you have to request access.
Yeah, Amity, thanks for clicking through. I wasn't aware that it sounds like portions of this may not be fully published, or if there are any, staff dedicated resources, there might be a couple of things we can look through and see if we can bundle relevant materials that Click might, be able to avail itself of and share those out. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
like I clicked through to the REIA and it won't let me access it. And I just wanted to see what it looks like.
the Division of Race Equity has a lot of really great tools around the REIA, and I think they're all in SharePoint. So we as staff are probably used to accessing it, but that's a good heads up for us, and we'll make sure you guys can get it.
Thank you.
All right. There have been enough questions and hands raised, so let's just have the clerk call the roll if there's no further discussion on tabling and having the discussion next week.
I'm sorry, could we state the motion, please?
The motion was to table or postpone the discussion on the staff presentation that's just been given on strategic and racial equity action plan and the race equity impact analysis to the June 9th meeting to allow members an opportunity to review the materials. It was moved and seconded, so we can just have the clerk call the roll.
All right. Thorbjorn Adam.
Aye.
Zachariah Aiden.
Aye.
Austin Beard.
Aye.
John Bernstein.
Aye.
Steve Brandt.
Aye.
Luke Cunningham.
Aye.
Scott Engel.
Aye.
Amity Foster.
Aye.
Kai Goodmestead.
Aye.
Katrina Stratton.
Aye.
William Gullickson.
Aye.
William Graves.
Aye.
Risa Husted.
Aye.
Lee Jones.
Aye. Sorry.
Richard LaRoe.
Aye.
Erica Mauder.
Aye.
Dan McConnell.
Aye.
Dan Miller.
Aye.
George Montague.
Aye.
Beth Toso.
Aye.
Todd Schumann.
Aye.
Eric Wan.
Aye.
Vice Chair Willie Bridges.
Aye.
Chair Jeff Strand.
Aye.
Is there anybody that I missed in this roll call? All right, with that, the ayes will have it.
Very good. So that's passed. Before we move on to 4B, Human Development Task Force discussion comments, as chair, I just want to remind the members that we, CLIC, do have our bylaws that we adopted April 27, 2019. And along with that, CLIC adopted policies and procedures. So the bylaws do state that CLIC meetings are run according to the Robert's Rules of Order newly revised. I don't know that any of us are perfect experts in Robert's rules, and we don't want to use those as if we were. So I think it's been noted that we use Robert's rules somewhat loosely, and we try to be inclusive and allow all members to speak and not be too formalistic. I want to also point out that in the policies and procedures, we do have some reference and guidance, and I hope staff has shared all of this material with members. If not, I will see that it gets shared immediately. But in terms of committee discussion, I just want to point out there is a committee discussion paragraph where, you know, members signify they wish to contribute by raising their hand. So we're doing that in a virtual setting. The customarily members, I'm quoting, customarily members will each be afforded the opportunity to speak to a specific discussion or action item before members will be acknowledged through the speaking queue to speak for a second time unless a question is specifically directed toward a member who has the floor. CLIC's role as a community voice is strongest when members voice their diverse perspectives. So I simply want to make sure that all members feel able and encourage you to raise your hands, speak your perspectives, make sure your voices are heard. This is a, you know, theoretical 33-member committee. Every one of our voices is important. So I don't want to belabor the point, but everyone's voice is valued and important. In fact, critical. So with that, let's move to 4B, and staff can project the Human Development Task Force discussion comments.
Yeah, if you give me a moment, I'll bring that up on the screen. Let's see here. All right, so I have our comments up on the screen, Jeff. I want to confirm, you know, just the way that these were shared out. We have our general comments up front. We have specific comments in development, and these include the Human Development Task Force. And I've noted next to the comment title, just some background on the last action that was taken on some of these comments.
Okay. So first is any Human Development Task Force discussion remaining?
I have a question.
Chair, Task Force Chair Eric, and then Katie, and then Katrina.
Okay, not for resolution, but rather for instructions. The language on NPD appears in two places, a slight variation between the general comment and also the as a specific comment for NPD's projects. I'd like to ask that we bundle those two together into one discussion to decide where it belongs. The second one is authored, I believe it says John Bernstein at the bottom, and the other is by Eamon.
So those are, Eric, those are probably under discussion item 5. So we're now on 4B. So if we, I just don't think the motion is in order at this time.
Okay, I see.
But it will be shortly. So
great, thank you.
Trying to avoid confusion for staff and new members and returning members. So,
okay.
So staff, are you using, what is the date of your version that you are presenting today?
So this is the version that was saved with June 1st, 2021 is the date. And so, Jeff, if I do understand correctly, we're specifically, as this first item, just considering those comments that were originally removed from the Human Development Task Force consent item, but which we didn't have time to discuss at last week's meeting.
Correct. That would be the intent.
And I see some hands up as well in the queue.
Okay, we have Katie, Katrina.
Hi. I ask everyone to please not hate me for this, but I have a request. So I was reviewing the public comments, and there were two our public meetings, and from those I generated two very short comments, one that is a general comment and one that is a transportation comment. And so I had basically a question for Robert, I think, and Jeff as to how, if there's an opportunity to have a discussion on this at the end of this meeting.
If there's no objection, perhaps I could just take those as part of item 6.
Okay.
Even if, because one is general. Katrina.
Yeah, I don't know where this goes either, but at the top under like the general comment, I sent this article to a couple people for discussion, but in the scientific, oh God, now I'm having a blank. Anyway, the language is changing so quickly with climate change that now 13,000 scientists have signed on that say we need to call it a climate emergency. I know the city hasn't done that yet, but would this be an appropriate place to recommend or for them to go back and review and change language, since this is what Scientific American and scientists sign on to this research study to change the language?
It may be appropriate when it's on the agenda, when we're on that agenda item. Are you proposing revising something that was either passed or tabled, or a new general?
I know it's just the general comment on climate change. Is that okay? So that language, or how that goes about being done?
I would think that would be under agenda item 6.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
So Steve Brandt and then Eric Wan.
I just wanted to mention that, like Katie, I have an item that is a comment. I was going to offer it today as an amendment to MBC 13, I believe it is, but I think it's more appropriate under MBC 12. So whenever that comes up.
Okay, so Steve spoke. Eric, do you have your hand up?
No, my hand's down now. Thanks.
Okay, Steve, hand is still up. Okay, so let's. So Robert, scroll to any HD discussion comments, and not the new general comments. So.
Okay, so Jeff, I see 2, and I just want to confirm, that we're looking at this one correctly. I think one of them was the MPD 04, MPD 05 public safety comment that was submitted by John Bernstein, that I think also dovetails with discussion around some other comments that have been submitted. And if I understand it correctly, we're going to move past that one. We're actually going to start with PSD 20, City Hall and New Public Services Building, which was removed from last week's consent agenda.
Yes, let's start with that one.
Okay.
So first of all, is there a motion? We have people who have hand raised. We should have, before we start discussing, we should have a motion to do something with something. So Steve and then John.
I'll move it.
Is there a second?
Second.
So we have it moved and seconded. Discussion. We have Steve and John hand raised.
I'll pass.
John?
Can we be clear about what just got moved? I'm finding this confusing. I submitted a comment for PSD 20, which is that what was just moved?
Yeah, so thank you. That's a great clarification. So, and we didn't have time until we just moved on, but PSD 20, City Hall and New Public Services Building has one comment from last week that was removed from the original consent agenda for the Human Development Task Force. We have an additional comment that was submitted in time for today's meeting on PSD 20 as well. And as we go through these, I'm going to try and call those out so that, and Robert, these are kind of grouped together.
If I could interrupt you, the person that needs to answer that question is the person that made the motion. So that's Steve.
Yeah, I was moving John's language.
Okay, so Jeff, could I be recognized to speak to it?
I can, although just to be clear for the maker, for future reference, we were actually showing and speaking about the 526 comments. So we'll take that as Steve is substituting the June 2nd, and we have it seconded by John, and John wishes to speak to it.
Thanks. So this comment is not intended to be factually different for the most part from the previous comment. It's there are some inaccuracies in the original comment that I removed. We have never commented on this project in the past. If you look in the 2019 and the 2020 reports, there are no comments about PSD 20 in either one of those reports, either in general comments or in the specifically for PSD 20. The other important thing, I removed the stuff about cost overruns. I'm assuming that the original authors of that got that information from the Star Tribune article, which I assume most people saw, which it's a little bit unclear from that article exactly what that's all about. I would note that the mayor is quoted in there as saying that part of the increased cost was as a result of doing further compliance around reducing the carbon footprint of the building. And I would note that those same authors have asked the city, in fact, to do that in other projects. So the important fact is that if you look at the 2019 and the 2020 reports and the 2021, the CBRs for PSD 20 for 2019, 2020, and 2021, the ask for money has dropped. It has decreased. So I think I'm not necessarily opposed to commenting on the cost overruns, but I think before we do that, we would need more clarity from the city around that, because that same article that says that the cost of the building went from something like 150 to 190 million also says that the combined cost of the new building and the consolidation into City Hall went from 210 million to 215 million. So there must have been some cost savings, and importantly, the ask that they have made of us has decreased over the last 3 years. So that's the thinking behind the comment that's on the floor.
Thanks, John. Scott Engel.
Can somebody read this? I'm totally lost as to what we're talking about. And
I can read it if Robert doesn't mind. I think I can see the fine print. PSD 20, City Hall and new public service building. Click recognizes the many benefits of consolidating city office space into the new public service building and City Hall, both with respect to improved service delivery and significant cost savings. Despite these facts, city officials chose not to submit this project to the same process and scrutiny to which every other capital budget request is subjected when the project was initially under consideration in 2018. Having capital projects that are not subject to review by the Capital Long Range Improvement Committee has the potential to undermine the work of the committee. Click requests that all capital projects that the city is contemplating be submitted to the same scrutiny, both in fairness to all other projects and to ensure that the committee has the full context of all projects being considered. Any further discussion? Scott? Okay, calling for any further questions or comments. Not seeing any at this point. Not seeing any hands raised. The clerk can call a roll on adoption of that substitute comment for the one that was removed for discussion May 26.
Yep, just a moment as I bring up the roll call here.
Okay.
All right, Bjorn Adam.
Aye.
Zachariah Aiden.
Aye.
Jocelyn Beard.
Aye.
John Bernstein.
Aye.
Steve Brandt.
Aye.
Luke Cunningham.
Aye.
Scott Engel.
Aye.
Amity Foster.
Aye.
Kai Goodmestead.
Aye.
Trina Stratton.
Aye.
William Gullickson.
Aye.
Graves.
Aye.
Lisa Hustad.
Aye.
Katie Jones.
Aye.
Richard LaRoe,
Aye.
Eric Commuter,
Aye.
Dan McConnell,
Aye.
Dan Miller,
Aye.
George Montague, Beth Toso,
Aye.
Newman,
Aye.
Eric Wan,
Aye.
Vice Chair Willie Bridges,
Aye.
or Jeff Strand.
Aye.
All right, with that, the ayes will have it.
Adopted. So Robert, maybe you want to make a note that is passed and then strike through the previous PSD 20. And I see John has his hand raised. Let's just do this housekeeping before we move into the next item. Okay, so then the agenda, that should cover item 4, correct, Robert? That we then move on to agenda item 5, task force comments tabled from the previous meeting.
Actually, I do note water 18 comment.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Yeah, some water 18.
Okay, so there we are. So
Yeah.
we're on that. Recognizing John.
And could I, Jeff, could I call out the different comments that we have here just to avoid the confusion from last time?
Yes, please do.
Actually, before you do that, it seems to me we're on MPD 04 and 05. That's further up on the list.
Yes, I think we had started consideration of that and decided to move on. If we want to go back to that, I can certainly take the group back up to the MPD 04, 05 comments.
So it's not, can I be recognized?
Was it removed or was it tabled? There you go.
It was removed. It was not tabled.
So they were originally removed and then they were tabled to today's meeting.
Yeah, so the clerk's record show that was tabled, so we should just finish up those other 2 that were postponed for discussion.
Okay,
Right.
I'll take us down to water. Yep.
There's an error.
Agreed?
Yeah, can I just point out, and this is just a point of information. I'm not the sole author of that comment. That comment was, the MPD comment was authored by me, Eamon Gallagher, and Thor Adam. And it was intended to be...
the June 2nd?
To Eric's point, it was intended to be a replacement for the other 2 comments.
Okay. Very good. Thanks, John. So let's just try to go through the report in the order the staff prepared it. So we have the next item under 4.
Mm-hmm. All right, so the next item is going to be the water 18 water distribution facility. We have a couple of alternate comments. Both were removed from the consent item for 5/26 for May 26 meeting. And we have an additional comment that relates to water 18 PSD 21 fire 11 that was submitted for today's meeting as well.
Okay.
If you let me know, I can go through it.
I'll see if anyone has a hand raised who wishes to make a motion. I see Eric and then Thor.
So I'll make that motion to adopt this language.
What is this? Is that everything there?
Yes.
All of
PSD 21 and fire 11.
All of the versions shown? Which version?
The version submitted on 6/2/2021.
Okay, so Eric has moved essentially as a substitute
Right.
the language of 6/2/21. Is there a second?
Second, Bernstein.
So we have a motion and a second, and we have other hand raised. So I'll go in order: Eric, Steve, and Robert.
I removed my hand.
Okay. Steve.
Well, this is an outgrowth of, basically carries forward some of the previous CLIC support for both of the projects on the site of Water 18, both the water distribution facility and the training facility, which is obviously much needed and would bring some much better paying jobs to the neighborhood through the construction trades. It also allows Fire 11 to go ahead, which clears other sites for redevelopment. I'm aware that there is considerable neighborhood sentiment for using the site, the old Roof Depot site, for a neighborhood green incubator sort of approach. But I don't think that the emergence of that impulse about 15 years after the master plan was adopted for the Hiawatha site is a good reason to tear up that plan. And I believe that the city could perhaps better accommodate the neighborhood's desires by working with the neighborhood to see if there's an alternative site available in the general vicinity that doesn't cause the disruption of a long-held master plan for public works.
Thank you. I think we may need to have the clerk read the comment, the substitute.
Yes, I'd be very glad to do so.
Okay.
Somebody, I was going to explore whether or not somebody wanted to summarize, I think, some of the key changes between the comments, but I can go ahead and read the Water 18, PSD 21, and Fire 11 comment. That
Is there a request? Is there a request to read it?
Yes, please read it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go through the Water 18, PSD 21, Fire 11 comments, and apparently I'm going to do some with some tornado sirens going on in the background. CLIC disagrees with the recent City Council decision to suspend second phase development of the Hiawatha Public Works Complex. The 1990 master plan to consolidate public works enterprises at this site is intended to improve scattered, inefficient, and substandard facilities with a consolidated campus. Moreover, suspending the implementation of Water 18, the water distribution facility, will stall development of the proposed Fire 11, fire station number 11, because water operations need to vacate the east yard on East Hennepin Avenue in order to free the site for a replacement for the current substandard Station 11. Halting Water 18 will also block the halting Water 18 will block the much needed effort to consolidate water maintenance operations on one site. Stalling the replacement of the substandard East Yard site consigns city workers to remain in an inadequate site in which welding is done on a creosoted wooden floor in cramped quarters. The only conference room is accessible only by a non-ADA compliant stairway. Expensive equipment is stored in the hayloft of a 19th century stable, and there is inadequate inside storage for maintenance vehicles that hold computers and valves that can't tolerate freezing weather, I believe. Halting PSD 21, the Hiawatha Training and Recruitment Center, is counterproductive to the needs of the East Phillips area because it deprives residents in an area of concentrated poverty to be trained for jobs that pay far in excess of the city's minimum $15 per hour standard. CLIC recognizes that residents of the area justifiably feel they are exposed to environmental hazards, but Public Works is not the culprit. The first phase development of the Hiawatha complex earned LEED Platinum certification. The city's fleet increasingly is powered by alternative fuels. Current and proposed public works operations are less noxious than the bituminous paving facility and foundry that border the Hiawatha complex. Some of the worst polluting impacts on the area have been mitigated or forestalled. One, a planned freeway on Hiawatha was downgraded to a boulevard with light rail transit. Two, the former Minneapolis Moline, I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. This former Minneapolis Moline site and adjacent rail yards have been converted to retail and light industrial or warehouse uses. Three, the former city incinerator south of East 28th Street East 28th Street no longer burns garbage and instead recycles construction materials. Four, a Superfund cleanup has removed arsenic dust from the neighborhood. And five, a proposed biomass incinerator was blocked. CLIC recommends that rather than reversing implementation of long-held plans, for the Public Works campus, the city, 1, work with residents to reverse or remove the impacts of neighboring private heavy industry, and 2, support neighborhood ambitions for green businesses by working with area residents to find an alternative site for them that preserves the Hiawatha campus for public works expansion. And
Thank you,
comment.
Robert. So we have it moved by Eric, seconded by John. We have a comment properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing no hands raised, the clerk will call a roll on adoption of the substitute.
Yep, just one moment. Right, we go Thorbjorn Adam.
Abstain.
Zachariah Aiden. Jocelyn Beard.
Aye.
John Bernstein.
Aye.
Steve Brandt.
Aye.
Luke Cunningham.
Aye.
Scott Engel.
No.
Amity Foster.
No.
See Kai Goodmestad.
Aye.
Katrina Stratton.
No.
William Gullickson.
Aye.
William Graves.
No.
Risa Husted.
No.
Katie Jones.
Abstain.
Richard LaRoe.
Aye.
Erica Mauder.
No.
Dan McConnell.
Aye.
Dan Miller.
Aye.
George Montague.
Aye.
Beth Toso.
Aye.
Todd Schumann.
Aye.
Eric Wan.
Aye.
Vice Chair Willie Bridges.
Abstain.
Chair Jeff Strand.
Voting aye.
I count 14 ayes.
Six nays, 3 abstentions.
6 nays, 3 abstentions.
Motion adopted. We'll move on to the next item in this part of the agenda, please.
I'm going to mark up a couple of notes on this real
Yes,
quick.
of course. Thank you. Eric Wan is recognized as soon as the clerk finishes the edits.
This is for the clerk, making sure that freeing becomes freezing.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
Got it. All right, so with that, I'm moving on to the next item that I noted was removed from last week's consent agenda, and that is Water 35, renewable energy at water treatment campuses, and PSD 24, solar at various locations.
Okay, so anyone wish to make any action on that?
I'll move adoption for the language. This is Eric.
Okay, Eric, is there a second?
This is
On
Zach.
the
Second.
Zach, second. Very good. Discussion. We have John.
Thanks.
John?
I removed this from the consent agenda, and I actually have no objection to the overall message of this comment. I agree. My only concern, and this is, it's not a huge one, so I'm not going to make a big deal out of it. The request I would make is that the language of this be toned down a little bit. I think it's absolutely appropriate for us to underscore the importance of this within the context of capital budget projects. But to me, this comment steps over that bound a little bit and sort of makes statements about climate change. Regardless, I agree with them, but they're a little bit out of context. I think we need to stick to as it relates to capital improvements. That's the tradition we've always had on this committee with all issues, and I think it should be consistent on this comment as well.
Eric?
Yeah, I'd like to hear from the authors if they're present here.
We have Luke.
Yeah, hey, so this is my first time on Click, obviously. So, John, I'd be happy to work with you and maybe we could redraft it for next week.
I'm certainly happy to do that if that's what people want to do. I'm also happy if I don't want to put her on the spot, but Katie Jones, you know, this is what she does for a living. And if she's in agreement with me, I'd be happy to defer to her on this as well.
So do the authors and makers and seconder of the motion agree to informally lay this aside for action next week after you have a chance to modify it?
I'll withdraw the motion.
So we'll just informally lay it on the table.
Yep.
For layover for further action next week, rather than spending the rest of our meeting wordsmithing. I know it's more than wordsmithing, but if there's no objection, we will take that action. So Eric, Zach, you agree?
Yes.
Okay. Good. That's people who wish to work with the authors. I heard Katie, John. So let's move to another one, Robert.
So at this time, and hopefully I'm interpreting this correctly, but it looks like we are through with the HD comments that had been submitted and tabled. We have 2 additional comments down at the end that were submitted. One is for PV 158, a paving project. Another is with regards to off-street recreational and commuter path assessments. Those were submitted following last week's meeting for transportation.
So we're done with 4 and 5. Clerk is indicating. Then
looks like we're done.
Move on.
I'm sorry. It looks like we're just 4, and we have the tabled comments.
Oh, the tabled. Okay.
Reading that
right. So let's start with the tabled comments. So, subject to an appeal, after reviewing Robert's rules, not wanting to be overbearing or have a tyranny of Robert's rules, but typically if something has been acted upon, a party who voted with the prevailing side may ask to reconsider it, and with a 2/3 vote, it may be reconsidered. So Eric.
Yeah, for those last 2 items, do they fit into any of the other categories? Those are new, the 2 at the bottom.
Yeah, and I had previously ruled for Katie and Steve that we would take new items with other new items in number 6, in agenda 6.
Okay, as general comments section. Okay.
Or if they're adopted, they can be referred to a different part of the report, so as to not jump the queue.
I'm good.
So we had items that were tabled. So this is the opportunity for members, if it wasn't clear, so we can, we are very informal. John will acknowledge when he's task force chair that we don't go through a big hoop to remove from the table. I'll recognize John.
So in keeping with that spirit, Jeff, I'm going to tell you what I'm trying to do, and you advise the best way to do this. I want to pull the MPD 0405 and public safety comments off the table, and I'm proposing that the comment that was rewritten by me and several of the authors of the other comments be put into consideration, or if it's appropriate to, if you want to vote on a motion to pull it off the table, we can do that first. Otherwise, I'm happy to do a motion to just consider that new comment.
I think I would accept a motion to substitute the new comment and adopt it if there's a second.
Second.
All right.
And the seconder was
Bill Gullickson.
Bill Gullickson. Okay. Recognizing John, the maker, to explain, and then Eric and Robert.
I'm happy to explain. I'm also happy to defer to either of my co-authors if they would like to jump in.
Let's go to Eric, and then we'll go to the next. Eric?
Yeah, this is a question perhaps for the author. So MPD 0405 public safety pretty much mirrors what's up in the general comments. Is this a substitute for the general comment section, or you keep scrolling up and there we go. Yep.
Oh,
Where's public safety?
general investments in public safety.
Yep, in there.
Okay, thank you.
So the question is, John, is your vision that both sections remain? The general comments as well as the MPD 45 section?
So I'll answer that question. Then I saw Thor's hand up, and I want to defer to him to comment on this. The intent is that this new substitute replaces both of those comments.
So it would no longer be present in the general section. It would only be present under MPD 4 and 5.
I don't have strong opinions about where it appears in the report, but it is intended to replace both of those comments.
Maybe you put public safety and then MPD 0405 and put it in general. Thor, recognizing Thor.
Yep.
Yes, just acknowledging what John said, that this was us working together to get the wording in a way that would be more concise with what some of John's critiques of the other comments. So.
Okay, while we're waiting for any other comments, clerk may need to read the comment.
Sure, and just to confirm, I'll be reading the new comment that was submitted for today's meeting. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
All right. So MPD 0405 public safety submitted for today's meeting. Given the various efforts currently underway to change how policing and public safety are provided by the city, CLIC finds it difficult to properly assess and make recommendations on major investments relating to the police department, such as new buildings, renovations to existing facilities, and other capital requests. Specifically, the two requests for new precinct buildings, MPD 04 and MPD 05, are seeking a total of over $35 million for assets that would have useful lives for many decades into the future. This lack of direction is not a new problem. In 2019, in evaluating a request for a new building for the first police precinct, CLIC requested clearer guidelines on the role and development of public safety in Minneapolis. In 2020, CLIC once more commented that it lacked clear guidance on the aims and potential transformation of public safety in the city, and for that reason was unable to meaningfully evaluate the appropriateness of capital projects as compared to city goals. CLIC strongly recommends that the city resolve the strategic direction for providing public safety before requesting funds for or undertaking projects such as those noted above. Additionally, the committee requests that the city also conduct a comprehensive strategic review, including a complete inventory of all current and contemplated future physical assets for the police department once its strategic direction is clear. We would note the curious absence of any requests for or information regarding a replacement for the third precinct building that was destroyed last year. Given the size of these investments, it is crucial that CLIC is able to see all of the department's current and future needs comprehensively. Accordingly, the committee recommends that such projects be delayed until these issues have been satisfied. End comment.
Thank you, Robert. Steve Brandt.
First of all, I'd like to say that I strongly support the comment. I wondered if the authors would consider expanding it to include, I don't have the lettering, but the training and wellness facility for police, which is a $22 million investment. It strikes me that many of the same arguments could be made for holding off on those until the future policing is clear, rather than just the 2 precinct houses. So if the authors would be amenable, I would propose language. If not,
John?
So just to respond to that, and I think also this might address something that Eric said about this comment looking more like it was replacing the public safety comment versus the MPD-04, which had the list of specific buildings and specific requests. We tried to move away from that and just tell them that we want this full inventory, but we had tried to address the issue that Steve's raising around that particular project in the line in the first paragraph that says, it's actually part of the first sentence. Given the various efforts currently underway to change how policing and public safety are provided by the city, CLIC finds it difficult to properly assess and make recommendations on major investments relating to the police department, such as new buildings, renovations to existing facilities, and other capital requests. So that's how we tried to include it, and I'd feel more comfortable not calling out anything specific beyond what we've done. I mean, we did MPD 04 and 05 just because it sort of underscores the fact that they're asking for big dollars over many, many years.
Steve?
the only comment I guess I would make in response is that I believe the training and wellness facility comes to a higher total than the 4th Precinct building does.
Next, Willie Bridges.
Yeah, I support this in the first paragraph because it's saying that we do not support it, but we need more information, and that really is clear to me what we're asking to do. So the first paragraph sort of summarizes what we're trying to do, what we're recommending, I should say.
Okay.
I think this is clear. To me, it's like the way it is, it works for me, rather than adding more language.
Other authors, Eamon, Thor, and seconder William Gullickson. We have Katrina and Thor.
My next,
Katrina?
I would like to support Steve's comment with maybe a vote. Seeing as how when I work for the city, if you aren't specific as far as what you're talking about, they're going to take exactly what you have written. And I think all the comments that have to do with public safety and policing, all of the proposals should be listed with MPD 04, 05, public safety, etc. So can I bring a motion that we vote on, Steve, so we can get through this, or that I just...
Well, Katrina, I think what I heard Steve ask was a question, sort of in search of a friendly amendment, but let him. When we come back to you, if you'll just hear from the other author, Thor, and then we'll come back to you. Thor.
Yeah, thank you. So if we're looking for maybe just adding that to the, MPD 04, MPD 05, and then the actual project that Steve is referring to, if that's satisfactory based on the language that we have and kind of the explanation, it does make sense to me to add in the projects that we're referring to in that top part. And I guess Steve, would that work for you without additional wording, or do you still feel more wording is needed?
Well, here's what I would propose, and I think it's in line with what you just said. After MPD 05, I would add and the MPD Training and Wellness Facility, parentheses PSD 23, And then I would skip to 35 million and change that to 57 million, which would be the new figure with the extra 22 million from PSV 23. Is that clear?
Do the authors accept that as a so-called friendly amendment, John?
I would consider that friendly. We can
Okay.
I would,
Or
yeah, I would too. We probably need to change to 3 requests then, just for the
Right.
word
okay.
work, but just
So
make wording works.
No, I
Eamon?
think it's actually okay the way it is because it's 2 precinct buildings, and then he's going to say and
Okay.
the wellness center. I was looking at that, and I think it's okay the way it is.
All right, I'm okay as long as it makes sense.
Okay, with no objection from the authors, maker, and seconder, the friendly amendment is incorporated. The clerk will revise it grammatically and so on. Any further discussion? I see, Steve, you have your hand up still?
I'm down.
Okay. So we have a motion properly made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the clerk will call the roll on adopting this substitute.
All right. Torbjorn Adam,
Aye.
Zachariah Aiden, Jocelyn Beard,
Aye.
John
Sorry,
Bernstein.
Robert. Aye.
Oh, thank you.
Zach. I was double muted.
Gotcha. John Bernstein,
Aye.
Steve Brandt,
Aye.
Luke Cunningham,
Aye.
Scott Engel,
Aye.
Amity Foster,
Aye.
Goodmestead,
Aye.
Katrina Stratton,
Aye.
William Gullickson,
Aye.
William Graves,
Aye.
Lisa Husted,
Aye.
Katie Jones,
Aye.
Richard LaRoe, Erica Mauder,
Aye.
Dan McConnell,
Aye.
Dan Miller,
Aye.
George Montague,
Aye.
Beth Toso,
Aye.
Todd Schumann,
Aye.
Eric Kwan,
Aye.
Vice Chair Willie Bridges,
Aye.
Chair Jeff Strand,
Aye.
as will have it.
The ayes have it. Motion is adopted. Clerk, once he has finished his edits, we'll move on to the next item. I have Eric in queue.
I don't know if there's a point of order, but does this automatically delete the general statement above on public safety?
I believe that was the maker's intent. Was there a? I'll call on the maker to restate his intent. I understood it as such.
This is Thor. That was my understanding when we were working on this with Eamon. He's not here today, but that was my understanding what was happening.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, time check. It's 1:27 p.m. So we have 33 minutes left. We have a couple of other items after comments that were theoretically going to be on the agenda for today. Eric, are you still in queue? Okay.
No, sorry.
Thank you. So Robert, I'll call
Sure.
again for tabled items. Does anyone have a motion affecting any items from HD that were tabled?
And for the group, I am noting a few tabled items from last week. We have Art 01, Art in Public Places, that was tabled today. I'm going to scroll through the document here and see if I can call out any additional ones. Okay, that Article 1 looks to be the last tabled item that we have on the docket today.
Okay, if I'm not seeing any action, so let's move on to item 6. Click general comments for discussion of the full body. We can always come back to it at the next meeting if somebody had another action in mind. So, okay, the clerk has the general comments for participatory budgeting. Is that the first?
Yes, that's the first general comment that we have in the document.
Okay, I will ask Vice Chair Willie Bridges to take the virtual gavel so as not to have any undue influence since I was the author. Willie?
Yep.
And I see you have John in queue.
John? John? Is John left? John?
Sorry, I was muted. I'm just moving adoption of the comment and would just remind somebody if we have a second that it get read aloud, please.
I'll second it. Second it, Willie Strand.
Okay. Discussion?
Vice Chair, it has to be read aloud.
All right. Give me a second. I'll go through the comment. This is a general comment on participatory budgeting for Minneapolis. Click reiterates the recommendation from the 2020 Click report that the city, quote, that the city improve community engagement through implementation of participatory budgeting practices using the results of its 2017 review of national procedures and best practices of other jurisdictions, end quote. Click has repeatedly made recommendations for participatory capital budgeting programs in 2015, 16, 17, 2019, and last year. Click recognizes, as a former mayor noted, the 33-member Click body is the citizen engagement component for the capital program. That said, Click members find a common message from residents and ratepayers at public information sessions and the Planning Commission joint public hearing is that the Minneapolis's capital improvement process does not provide many avenues for residents to engage upstream in the development of proposals. Many other cities, including St. Paul, provide some opportunities for residents, neighborhood, and community organizations to identify areas of need for capital improvement programming to be considered by the appropriate advisory board or commission and the elected policymakers in comment.
Okay. John, you got your hands up?
Sorry, no, I'll lower it.
Any comments? Jeff?
I have no further comment than what's there. Click has repeatedly requested some form of participatory budgeting for inclusion, and I think it could add to racial equity work as well.
Okay. Take a vote, roll call.
Correct.
Robert? Robert?
Yep, sorry, just getting my notes in order. Thorbjorn Adam.
Aye.
Zachariah Aiden.
Aye.
Jocelyn Beard.
Aye.
Don Bernstein.
Aye.
Steve Brandt.
Aye.
Luke Cunningham.
Aye.
Scott Engel.
Aye.
Steve Foster.
Aye.
Aye, Goodmanstead. Katrina Stratton.
Aye.
William Gullickson.
Aye.
William Graves.
Aye.
Risa Hustad.
Aye.
Katie Jones.
Aye.
LaRoe. Erica Mauder.
Aye.
McConnell.
Aye.
Dan Miller.
Aye.
George Montague.
Aye.
So
Aye.
Todd Schumann.
Aye.
Eric Wan.
Aye.
Vice Chair Willie Bridges.
Aye.
Chair Jeff Strand.
Voting aye.
And did I miss anybody in the roll call? All right.
Okay.
Okay, I'll scroll down to our next general comment, but I note a hand is up currently.
Jeff?
Okay. Did the ayes have the earlier one?
Yes.
Yes.
I will move adoption of the Renew Reforestation general comment co-authored by Steve Brandt and myself.
Is there a second? Is there a second? Who was that that made the second?
William Gullickson, second.
Okay. Discussion? Is there any discussion? Robert, would you do a roll call?
Hang on, can we,
Red.
once, and we've got members that need these read. Can we make
red.
each comment?
Red.
Yep. So this is general comment, renew reforestation of public sector properties as part of climate action plan. Quick members request that the city and/or Minneapolis Parks consider renewing a formal capital budget request for a program with goals similar to the City Property Reforestation CTY02 project that existed in the capital improvement program from 2014 to 2017, funded at $150,000 annually. Click requests more complete data for its 2022 process on the status and health of the urban tree canopy cover, acreage, percentage of land diversity. Click members believe that there are opportunities for reforestation on city-owned facilities, as well as other public sector properties, both large and small scale, to provide for increased natural space, supporting urban agriculture and community gardening sites, facilitating carbon sequestration through tree plantings, and implementing other actions in the city of Minneapolis or Hennepin County climate action plans. The new program could intersect with the existing PRKDT diseased tree removal project that focuses on removal of diseased trees from private properties, excluding the public right-of-way and other public lands, addressing emerald ash borer and Dutch elm disease. The city enterprise could explore using or expanding $300,000 annual levy for PRKDT to support reforestation in addition to removal of diseased trees, with a combined $500,000 annual program, ensuring that it addresses new and emerging tree diseases. End comment.
Okay. Steve, you got your hands up, and then Steve?
Yes.
Can't hear you, Steve.
Sorry. To unmute, to mute. Sorry. I just wanted to confer a moment here with my co-author. We had some discussion before the meeting about bumping up the figure even more. As you may recall, the diseased tree removal special levy was an 8-year levy of $1.4 million a year. It expires, this is the last year. And Jeff, I wondered if you're comfortable with going using some additional amount of that money to support reforestation. I'll defer to your judgment, but
I agree with Steve Brandt, and that would be a friendly amendment if accepted by the seconder.
I have no problem with that.
Eric, you have your hands up?
Yeah, I have a question here, perhaps some historic perspective. This reads to me as an O&M project rather than a capital infrastructure project. Is there a historic reason why it's in our bailiwick?
I could address that if I'm not breaking in line.
Go ahead, Steve.
It seems to me that if diseased trees were in the quick bailiwick, that replacing those trees might also fit within the quick bailiwick.
John?
Thank you. I support the comment overall. I would like us to see us not be quite so prescriptive in that final sentence and give them dollar amounts like that. That's traditionally not something we've done. I think that's getting in the weeds a little more than we ought to. If you wanted to say something that was a little less specific about wanting it to be real, meaningful funding, I'd be fine with that. But and again, I'm not going to oppose the comment over this, but I would prefer to see us not get that prescriptive. We traditionally don't do that.
Any more discussion? Steve, your hand's still up.
Oh, sorry, I'll take it down.
Katie, did you have your hands up?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Katie, sorry.
No worries. I'm just wondering if there's some kind of friendly amendment that could be put in there as far as also accessing or assessing solar access situations or buildings, as in preventing solar access. This is a really big one for me, since solar is a big thing for me, is that the city really pushes tree planting, and it's not necessarily a good thing for every spot, believe it or not. But if there could be something put in there as far as also having that in the in the assessment.
Okay, Katrina, Katie, Kitty.
I'm sorry, Katie. I thought. Never mind.
Vice Chair, I see William Graves and Steve Brandt.
Okay, William.
Yeah, I was wondering if the authors would be amenable to a friendly amendment to directly call out a racial equity impact assessment in the request for more complete data.
I am completely comfortable with that as one of the co-authors. Jeff Strand.
Okay, Steve, there's anything else that you had your hands
I
up?
just would wonder if, given the multiple suggestions we might take, do we have another week to tune up some of the wording in response to some of the suggestions, or do we need to do it on the fly today?
There has been a lot of input, and I would suggest that we do that. We have a meeting the 9th, rather than, you're exactly right, Steve. So many things going on. If the author can get with the rest and see how we can integrate some of the comments. Jeff?
Yeah, so I would recommend that we informally lay this over for action 1 week from today at the next meeting to incorporate those comments.
We need to have a motion on that?
No, I've done that. We just informally lay it over for action next week.
Okay. Well, push this over to the 9th as various folks who have talked can get together and reword this and add those comments.
Okay.
Robert, what's next?
So I've scrolled down in the document that we circulated ahead of the meeting to the PV 158 Hennepin Avenue comment that was submitted for review following last week's meeting. This strikes me as a transportation project. I just want to be explicit about that. And I believe the next one as well is a transportation project. It's off-street recreational and commuter path assessment and rehabilitation. I'm showing two projects here, PV 158 Hennepin Avenue, and there's two comments. One is on PV 158 Hennepin Avenue. One is off-street recreational and commuter path assessment and rehabilitation. Please let me know if I can read and review either of these comments. These are the last two that I show.
Thank you, Vice Chair, for taking the gavel. I would recommend that we see if there's a motion to adopt PV 158, and that if adopted, it would go under the transportation section of the report. Ditto for the off-street recreational. So is there a motion on PV 158? We're not showing who the author was. John.
On your mute.
Thank you, Willie. I'll move PV 158 for adoption for purposes of discussion.
Second, Willie.
Moved and seconded. Discussion, John.
I'll defer to the author. I'm not the author of this comment. I'll let somebody else comment on it.
Would the author like to speak to their comment? Apparently not. If not, we have it moved and seconded, so if there's no other discussion, the clerk should call the roll.
I have a question here.
Eric?
Yeah, are there any budget implications here?
Can you be more specific?
This doesn't ask for any resources. It just asks for clarification as to whether or not the federal money will still be available in 2024. Is that the question being asked here?
Let's go to Katie Jones next, and then John.
Yes, so this is something that we talked about last week, and I think I'd mentioned that I'm on the Hennepin County Engagement Advisory Committee, and we were told that the federal funding is still available. So, I mean, we can ask a pointed email. I think that is more appropriate for an email if we want, further confirmation on that. I will again be voting against this motion. There's been a lot of engagement on this project for the last 3 years, and I don't think that it's appropriate.
Thanks, Katie. John and Eric.
So, I'm not the author of the comment, but I support the comment. I see no problem in asking them formally to confirm that federal funding is still there. I don't doubt what Katie's saying, but I still think there's benefit to putting this in writing in a public document, and I see nothing controversial about asking them to continue to be very thoughtful about this project and voting in favor.
Eric dropped his hand. George is next.
Sorry, I had a problem with my mic. Yeah, I'm the author of it, and per John's comment, the two things are: one is to clarify formally that the funding is available at the time that it'll be needed for the project, and also to take advantage of the extra time just to make sure that we are investing for the city's needs over the coming decades in this vital corridor.
Thank you, George. Any other comments? If not, the clerk will call a roll on adoption of PV 158 as shown.
All right. Thorbjorn Adam.
Aye.
Zachariah Aiden.
Aye.
Beard.
Aye.
Bernstein.
Aye.
Steve Brandt.
Aye.
Luke Cunningham.
Aye.
Engel. Amity Foster.
Abstain.
Katrina Stratton. Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped over Kai Goodmestad. We have Kai Goodmestad.
What's mute?
All right. Katrina Stratton.
Aye.
William Gullickson.
Aye.
William Graves.
No.
Lisa Hustad. Katie Jones.
No.
Richard LaRoe. Erica Mauder.
No.
Dan McConnell. Oh, I'm sorry. I missed Dan McConnell. It sounds like you came off mute in the middle of response.
I pass.
Dan Miller.
No.
George Montague.
Yes.
Beth Toso.
Abstain.
Todd Schumann.
Aye.
Eric Wan.
No.
Vice Chair Willie Bridges,
Abstain.
Chair Jeff Strand.
I will abstain also.
Moment as I tally.
Did pass, do you go back to Dan McConnell or is that an abstention?
Oh, I'm sorry. I will do a call. Is there anybody that I missed as I went through the roll call?
Risa Husted, no.
Thank you. I count 10 ayes. Yeah, 10 ayes, 6 nays, and 5 abstentions.
Motion adopted. We have off-street recreational, so we have hands raised. George, Risa, and Katie, and Steve.
I'm sorry, I tried to take my hand down.
Oh, okay.
So there you go, thanks.
Then I'm not seeing Risa, Katie, and Steve.
Yeah, just curious. You have to have a majority to pass, and there were 10 out of 21 votes. That's not a majority.
Abstentions aren't counting, so. Steve and then Katie.
I would move the off-street recreational and commuter path assessment and rehabilitation item, which we discussed last week. We made minor wording changes and it's now ready to go. So it's so moved.
Is there a second?
Second, Willie.
Second, Willie. Any discussion? Steve, unless you have your hand raised, any discussion? Not seeing any hands raised, so we'll call the roll again, please, clerk.
All right. Torbjorn Adam.
Aye.
Kariah Aiden.
Aye.
Beard.
Aye.
Bernstein.
Aye.
Steve Brandt.
Aye.
Luke Cunningham.
Aye.
Scott Engel. Scott Engel. Amity Foster.
Aye.
Kai Goodmanstead. Katrina Stratton.
Aye.
William Gullickson.
Aye.
William Graves.
Aye.
Lisa Husted.
Aye.
Dee Jones.
Aye.
Richard LaRoe. Erica Mauder.
Aye.
Dan McConnell.
Aye.
Dan Miller.
Aye.
George Montague.
Aye.
Toso.
Aye.
Todd Schumann.
Aye.
Eric Wan.
Aye.
Vice Chair Willie Bridges.
Aye.
Chair Jeff Strand.
Voting aye.
Right.
Ayes
The
have
ayes
it.
have it.
So noting that we had Katie and Steve request additional comments. I don't know if they're available in written form. We have 7 minutes remaining in our meeting scheduled time. Before we move to them, unless there's objection, I'd like to at least have the staff give a 30-second report on number 7 and 8. So we'll have to postpone those two items clearly. Robert, did you?
Yes. Yeah, so you want us to just briefly report back on item 7, distribution and brief overview of the rating?
Yeah, 30-second reports, please, since we'll have to move those to the next meeting.
Yeah, sure. If I could, I can even bring up something very briefly that Neil Younghands developed on the scoring. We did receive scores back. I think we have a couple of additional scores outstanding that we need to incorporate. But at this point, you know, we have substantive scores that shows just how well the projects are faring against the click rankings. Neil developed a box and whisker plot that really shows, you know, it's the X's as they go across the screen here really show the averages of the scores as they kind of go down, and folks can see there's some variation, you know, as we go across all the projects. This was something interesting that Neil had actually developed for us last year, and we're able to present on this year in a little bit more detail, just some additional analysis on, you know, how the scores fare. And I think what's interesting to note, just as part of this really brief summary, is that, you know, that average shows a really steady decline in points as you go all the way across the board, and the slope is pretty slow and steady until you get to what is about the 150 point range, and then you see a natural break. And that's something that we typically look for as we evaluate scores. And if I could opine really briefly, opine's probably not the right word, just throw out there, our net debt bonding levels for these projects doesn't tend to extend all the way down to the 145 point range. It tends to be a little bit higher. I believe last year the natural cutoff that we were looking for was closer to 165 points. It'll be really interesting to see that as we move into the net debt bond programming work that we do. I have a really brief glimpse of the net debt bonding sheet that we'll be using as well. If I could bring that up on the screen, just for folks to see it in action. Neil has already populated this document. I've got it tremendously zoomed out here, but essentially the document takes the requests that we've seen come in from departments, and then we can essentially enter in, you know, a score and watch how this populates across all of the different projects. You can see how the funding levels get pulled directly through just based on the ranking that the committee wants to use as a cutoff point. Again, these rankings are still being updated as some additional scores are incorporated. So this is by no means final, but this is a document that we'll be using to, you know, essentially develop the programming that will be recommended to the mayor's office as a result of the committee's work this year. Are there any additional clarifications or
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Robert. So traditionally staff gives us 2 reports. They give you comprehensive project rankings, highest to lowest, and then they give the committee project rankings by commission, board, department, and those go into the report. So wanted to at least touch on those. I know we had 2 other members who had items. Steve has had his hand raised, and I think Eric did. Steve, you're muted.
I had a question. Are we going to move into Katie's and mine now, or are you saving those till next week?
Depends on how long you have those in writing.
Yes. I do. I put them in the chat. Okay. I'm about to lose my signal because I have an appointment that I have to go to. I'd be happy to be put off till next week, although I should point out that on the click schedule, there is no next week. It's 2 weeks.
We did vote to meet, yeah, June 9th, 12 to 2.
Okay, it wasn't on the SharePoint, so I wanted to. I could put mine off till next week.
Thank you, Steve, for putting yours off till next week.
Okay.
Katie, 2-minute item.
I emailed it to Robert, but here's the probably one that's easiest to pass. It's a general comment during our public information sessions. So here it is. I'll read it. As the city pursues greater resilience in the face of climate change, CLIC urges the city to push and collaborate with the electric utility Xcel Energy to bury electrical lines during opportunities of reconstruction. Doing so helps protect the critical infrastructure as weather events intensify. We know this is possible, as already done in downtown projects. CLIC urges the city to ensure this practice of burying electrical infrastructure occurs throughout the city.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Willie. Discussion. Steve is frozen, but Steve has his hand up. Any discussion? Any discussion? Not seeing any. Clerk can call the roll quickly.
Yep, very gladly. Thorpe Bjorn Adam.
Aye.
Brad Aiden.
Aye.
Jocelyn Beard.
Aye.
John Bernstein.
Aye.
Steve Brandt. Luke Cunningham.
Aye.
Oh, Steve, I'm gonna register that aye. Or sorry, just to be clear, Steve Brandt. Seeing your hand up, I didn't hear the aye.
He's frozen.
Steve is frozen.
There we go. All right, Luke Cunningham.
Aye.
Thank you. Scott Engel. Scott Engel. Amity Foster.
Aye.
Kai Goodmestead. Katrina Stratton.
Aye.
It's 2 o'clock.
William Gullickson.
Aye.
William Graves.
Aye.
Lisa Hustad.
Aye.
Edie Jones.
Aye.
Erica Mauder.
Aye.
Dan McConnell.
Aye.
Dan Miller.
Aye.
George Montague. Beth Toso.
Aye.
Todd Schumann.
Aye.
Eric Wan.
Aye.
Vice Chair Willie Bridges.
Aye.
Chair Jeff Strand.
Voting aye.
The ayes will have it.
Okay, motion adopted. Final things. I see George Montague, you have your hand raised, and then.
Yeah, I was just trying to say aye on that. My mic keeps getting stuck.
Oh,
sorry about that.
Thank you.
And Dan McConnell, did you get the Scrivener's clerical error correction that you wanted to make made?
I didn't draft it. I thought it was, I wasn't sure how to deal with that, I guess. So if you want me to try and revise that.
So staff, are we good with bollards?
Yeah, I just want to be clear where this is in reference to the MBC 13 project. We wanted to strike balustrades and replace it with the word bollards, and then reduce some just clearly redundant language out of the comment. Some identical language is being stripped out of the comment. So I've made those within.
Excellent. Katie Jones, last word.
Yeah, I have one more comment that I'd love to bring up next week, and I'll send it forward.
Thank you. So our next meeting is the executive committee did adopt and is responsible for the schedule along with the executive secretary. So there is a meeting June 9, noon to 2 p.m. Same bat channel. And so with that, seeing no further hands raised, we have completed all items on the agenda for this meeting with the exception of adjournment. I will ask members and staff if there are any other matters to come before this meeting. I see John, hand raised.
I see that a number of members have dropped off, so I would just ask that staff put out an email today that clarifies that we have a meeting next week since it's not currently on the schedule.
Yeah, thank you. We'll send out a reminder very shortly about the meeting next week.
So noted. If not, without objection, I'll declare this meeting adjourned, and our next meeting will be Wednesday, June 9th, 2021. Thank you, everyone. And updated report by email or SharePoint, preferably both, would be ideal. Thanks, everyone.